The damp chill of the morning mist in May 1899 was the first thing to greet them, a coldness that seeped through heavy canvas tents and settled into the marrow of the bone. It carried the incessant, deafening croak of thousands of frogs rising from the papyrus swamp, a sound that drowned out the clinking of teacups and the nervous murmurs of the exhausted laborers. This waterlogged plateau was never meant to be a destination. It was simply mile 327. Here the air was thin, the ground was a treacherous sponge of black cotton soil, and the horizon was dominated not by towers but by the silhouette of grazing herds and the predators stalking them. Nature ruled this silence. Yet amidst the mud and the malaria, a single survey peg was driven into the earth, marking the site of a railway depot that would inadvertently spawn a capital. This was the unintentional birth of Nairobi, Kenya. The origins of this metropolis lie in a project so ambitious and costly it was dubbed the /Lunatic Express by skeptics in London who could not fathom why the British Empire was sinking millions into the East African interior. The objective was purely strategic, to connect the port of Mombasa to the shores of Lake Victoria, securing the source of the Nile. But the engineering reality was a nightmare. Between 1896 and 1901, the construction of this iron snake consumed the lives of 2,493 workers, their bodies lost to accidents, disease, and the infamous man-eating lions of Tsavo. The railway forged ahead. When Chief Engineer George Whitehouse reached the swampy plain known by the Moss as and Care Nairobi *, the place of cool waters, he saw a flat expanse suitable for shunting yards and workshops. It was a logistical decision, devoid of urban planning foresight, chosen merely because the steam trains needed a flat surface before attempting the steep, grueling ascent up the Rift Valley escarpment. Whitehouse ordered the construction of a depot. Corrugated iron sheets were hastily erected to house the railway staff, creating a frontier settlement that looked more like a shanty town than a future regional hub. Conditions were abysmal. The drainage was non-existent. In the wet season, the streets turned into impassable rivers of sludge, trapping carts and spreading typhoid with lethal efficiency. It was a death trap. By 1902, the town was so riddled with bubonic plague that the medical officer of health, Dr. Bodecker, recommended the entire settlement be burned to the ground and relocated. The administrators hesitated. Instead of moving, they chose to segregate, a decision that would scar the urban fabric of Nairobi for a century. They burned the bazaar. The Indian laborers and merchants who had built the railway and opened the first shops were forced into a cramped commercial district, while the European administrators claimed the higher, cooler, and better-drained ridges to the west. This geographical apartheid defined the city's growth. Nairobi urban planning map archives reveal these sharp dividing lines, etched in ink and enforced by law. Despite the disease and the segregation, the town refused to die. In 1907, it stole the title of capital from Mombasa, cementing its status as the administrative heart of the colony. The transformation began. Concrete mixers worked 24/7 as 15 new skyscrapers rose simultaneously across the financial district decades later. But in those early days, the change was measured in the transition from wood to stone. The arrival of the motor car changed everything. Wide avenues were cut through the bush, paved with asphalt to suppress the choking red dust that coated every surface during the dry season. The city expanded outward, consuming the surrounding coffee plantations and grazing lands. But the true metamorphosis occurred after 1963. When the Union Jack was lowered and the Kenyan flag raised, Nairobi was no longer a colonial outpost. It was the capital of a sovereign republic. The new government, led by Jomo Kenyatta, sought to stamp an African identity onto the skyline. They wanted height. They wanted a symbol of permanence that would overshadow the colonial clock towers and low-rise administrative blocks. This ambition materialized in the Kenyatta International Convention Center, or KICC. Commissioned in 1967, this tower was a radical departure from the boxy international style dominating the West. It was designed by the Norwegian architect Carl Henrik Nostvik in close collaboration with David Mutais, the first African chief architect at the Ministry of Public Works. They envisioned a structure that mimicked the form of a traditional African hut, elongated and stretched toward the heavens. The central core was constructed using slip-form concrete, rising steadily as a beacon of independence. Construction crews poured thousands of tons of concrete. Rising 105 meters into the sky, the 28-story cylinder became an instant icon, its terracotta facade reflecting the reddish hues of the African earth. For decades, it stood as the tallest structure in Nairobi, a visual anchor visible from miles away. The city grew around it. The 1970s and 80s saw a surge in rural-to-urban migration, swelling the population from a few hundred thousand to millions. The infrastructure groaned under the weight. The colonial water systems, designed for a small settlement, were overwhelmed, leading to the constant hum of private water tankers navigating the traffic-choked streets. The city needed water. To quench this thirst, massive engineering projects were launched to pipe water from the Aberdare Range, channeling it through miles of underground tunnels that snake beneath the chaotic surface. Deep beneath the bustling avenues, a different kind of network was taking shape. while the surface roads became gridlocked with the vibrant, chaotic energy of *Matatus*. The privately owned minibuses that serve as the city's lifeline, engineers were laying the groundwork for a digital revolution. Nairobi was quietly transforming into the Silicon Savannah. Fiber optic cables were threaded through existing sewer ducts and alongside power lines, creating a high-speed nervous system that would attract global tech giants. This was invisible infrastructure. It turned the city into a technology hub where mobile money platforms like M-Pesa were invented, revolutionizing global banking from the streets of this East African capital. Yet the physical challenges remained. The black cotton soil that George Whitehouse had dismissed as a nuisance proved to be a formidable enemy for modern engineers. This soil swells when wet and shrinks when dry, cracking foundations and swallowing roads. Building tall in Nairobi requires deep, expensive piling. To construct the skyscrapers of the Upper Hill District, like the 31-story Brigham Tower, engineers had to drive steel-reinforced concrete piles dozens of meters into the bedrock, anchoring these glass giants against the shifting earth. The skyline transformed rapidly. Today, the most visible scar of transformation is the Nairobi Expressway. Financed and built by the China Road and Bridge Corporation, this $600 million megaproject is a 27.1-kilometer ribbon of concrete and steel that slices through the city's heart. It hovers above the old Uhuru Highway, a double-decker solution to a two-dimensional traffic problem. The construction was a spectacle of speed and logistical might. Skyline cranes lifted massive prefabricated concrete box girders into place overnight, assembling the viaduct like a giant toy set while the city slept. Drone flying through clouds reveals the sheer scale of this artery, connecting the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport to the western suburbs in minutes rather than hours. It is a controversial marvel. Critics point to the environmental cost, noting how the imposing pillars cast shadows over the one-screen medians, yet for the logistics companies and commuters, it is a necessary bypass for a city choking on its own success. But Nairobi is a city of dualities. Just miles from the gleaming glass of the Global Trade Center and the sterile efficiency of the expressway lies Kibra, one of the largest informal settlements in Africa. Here, the urban transformation is not measured in steel beams, but in corrugated iron sheets and community resilience. The geography of the original segregation still echoes here. While Upper Hill scrapes the sky, Kibra hugs the river, a reminder of the housing crisis that rapid urbanization leaves in its wake. The government has initiated massive slum upgrading projects, replacing mud-walled homes with high-rise apartment blocks, a slow and complex process of vertical integration. Perhaps the most unique aspect of Nairobi's infrastructure is its proximity to the wild. It is the only capital city in the world with a national park within its limits. The boundaries between the concrete jungle and the savannah are guarded by electric fences and rangers. A helicopter aerial over city captures this surreal juxtaposition, a giraffe grazing against a backdrop of skyscrapers, or a lion prowling just yards from the busy southern bypass. This coexistence is under threat. The standard gauge railway, another massive infrastructure project, had to be elevated on immense concrete pillars to cross through the park, allowing wildlife to migrate beneath the thunder of cargo trains. It is a compromise. As the city races toward 2030, the focus has shifted to regeneration. The Nairobi River, long treated as a sewer for industrial runoff and urban waste, is the target of an ambitious cleanup campaign. Excavators and dredging barges are removing tons of plastic and silt, attempting to restore the cool waters that gave the city its name. Architects pointing at models envision a future where the riverfront is a green corridor, a public space for a population that has been squeezed by unchecked development. The skyline continues to evolve. The Prism Tower, with its geometric diamond-shaped design, captures the equatorial sun in a dazzle of light, symbolizing a new era of architectural confidence. Meanwhile, the Pinnacle Tower project aims to push the vertical limits even further, digging arguably the deepest foundations in African construction history to support what could be the continent's tallest building. Cement trucks pour foundations. These projects are not just buildings. They are statements of intent, declaring Nairobi as the financial gateway to East Africa. The weather, however, remains the city's oldest resident. The cool breeze that George Whitehouse felt in 1899 still sweeps down from the Ngong Hills in the evening, clearing the smog and dust. It is a reminder of the high-altitude geography that made this location desirable in the first place. The city has survived plague, fire, colonial oppression, and terrorist attacks. It has transformed from a swampy rail depot to a metropolis of over 4 million people, a chaotic, vibrant, and innovative engine of growth. Nairobi does not hide its scars, it builds over them, layer by layer, asphalt over mud, fiber optics over sewer lines. It is a place where the future is being welded together by the sparks of industry and the hustle of its people. In the end, Nairobi stands as a testament to the unpredictable nature of urban evolution. It proves that a city can rise from the most unlikely of foundations, turning a logistical mistake into a thriving capital. It is a reminder that cities are not just static collections of buildings, but living organisms that adapt, survive, and grow, regardless of the odds stacked against them. This is the enduring legacy of the place of cool waters.